And so we heard from more. Thank you, John. So we heard from more than 2,000 people on a variety of topics related to the comprehensive plan, and environment and sustainability was one of them. So I will scroll down here. And so one of the main things that was brought up is natural areas management, especially with heavily used areas. And this is something that in the time that I've been in Winona, which is about 15 years here, that I've seen just take off. Not only the use of trails, which was happening before, but also more of the formalization of some trails and natural areas, and people wanting to get outside and go experience those areas. Something that in my mind, I've seen just blossom here over the last 15 years. So you can see with more use and more people, the management, of course, becomes that much more important. So there were some comments related to that, and mentioning more funding for Healthy Lake Winona as well, and that being critical. So. Also, the second thing that came up was cooperative maintenance, both as a way to keep public spaces nice and provide opportunities for community members to meet each other. You can see there's a number of ideas that people would like to see, such as enhancing Latch Island as part of the community. Sometimes there are issues with upkeep. Picking up trash around the lake with the football team is something that has been done before. A large number of groups all pitching in to help keep some areas clean is something that I think is important to people and helps people to get to know each other. And then finally, incorporating green space and Winona's unique topography into development plans. And our land use subcommittee has been taking a look at this. One of the main goals and objectives they have is preservation and enhancement of not just natural areas, but also recreation areas as well. So that's definitely a topic that the land use subcommittee has been discussing, and something that is similar among all of the committees in the group is there is some overlap on a lot of these different topics, because, for instance, having a great natural environment attracts people who want to live in Winona. It's great for our economy, and that gets into the economic development section, into the housing section, and has to do with land use as well. So it's all interwoven, and you can see from these comments that people are especially want to see Winona continue to manage and emphasize our natural resources moving forward. So that being said, I guess I'll ask if there's any questions or comments on that page that's in front of you here and some of the input that we received from phase one. Okay.
Is this, Carlos, is this a summary of the input? You said there were 2,000 respondents. And so this is just a summary of broadly of what was stated.
Exactly. So we have a whole report on what we heard, but things that were specifically related to the environment and natural resources are highlighted here. So this is also not all of the comments, but it is a summary of all the comments. And so the way we've looked at it with our comprehensive plan and the engagement is that we have the raw data in a spreadsheet. If you want to take a look at all of the answers that were given to all of the questions, but this is what our Engage Winona and Marcia was able to do to consolidate that down and help us to see it all on one piece of paper instead of multiple.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, thanks everyone. I'll just hand it over to John. And John, if you could give us just an overview of the work that you've been doing with the sustainability plan thus far.
Sure, thanks, Carlos. So yes, we are. I think a few members of this committee have been, pretty heavily involved in the sustainability plan development. But I'll start with kind of a broad overview. So this has been in the works for a while. We really started scoping our sustainability plan as well as hiring a consultant back in the fall of 2021. So we are about a year and a half into that process, and should be wrapping up pretty soon here. I'll start by saying that there was a pretty extensive outreach effort to begin our process to hear from the community, much like what the comprehensive plan has done with Engage Winona. And that work has helped guide what we settled on or determined for our focus areas. And there are 6 of those. The one that I think had the most community input and engagement and excitement around was protecting our water resources. And so we've developed some overarching strategies on that. And I don't know if I don't think the sustainability plan has been shared with this committee, most recent draft at least. So I will try to get that out to you after this meeting. It's a bit of a long document, so it will take a little bit of time to digest, but I'm going to give you a high level summary here. So water was the most engaged piece, both in stormwater considerations and protection of our river and Lake Winona in particular got a lot of attention, as it should. Probably one of our next biggest engagement pieces was around energy and having incorporating more energy conservation and better use of energy, as well as enhancing the number and visibility of renewable energy sources. Solar was probably the number one referenced renewable energy, but that's a piece that the city will work on our internal operations, but we'll also do education and outreach to the broader community, the business community, to try to lower our energy use and corresponding carbon footprint. Climate change was not a specific focus area of this plan, but we are very cognizant that all of the different pieces here fit in with how the climate will be changing and how we can adapt to that, as well as with the energy. And our next topic I'm going to talk about is transportation, how we can reduce our carbon emissions and be more in line with our goal to be net zero by 2050. So the city adopted that goal back in 2018 to be a net zero city by 2050. So that's one of we do have an energy action plan, but more or less that's going to be very much in line with what we were saying for our energy goals here. Transportation was a very varied topic. Yeah, we wanted to, it has an environmental consideration from simply driving our vehicles, that transportation is the number one carbon emission sector in the state now, due to some greening and improvement of renewable energy sources. But it's also how we get around and how we can have a community, build a community, have a walkable community. So those are some of the big pieces. And maybe lastly, from the transportation sector, was making sure that we are ready for electric vehicles, and that's coming, the increasing electrification of both passenger vehicles, with the cars that we drive, as well as being ready for electric buses and incorporating those once we're able. Waste is probably a topic. Waste and recycling is another pillar, our fourth pillar we're looking at, and this is both reducing what we produce as waste, increasing recycling, and having a more circular economy where if there's excess material from an industry, that it gets used by another, and making sure to capture and certainly go reduce, reuse, and recycle. Recycle is often what we think about and probably what we most do on a daily basis, but actually the other, reduce and reusing, is as a more important footprint. And also within waste is exploring organic material and making better use of that, and ensuring that's utilized both from waste wood and waste food, because those are parts of our right now that maybe are suboptimally utilized. Our fifth topic was natural resources, and this covers a lot of the same area that Carlos discussed and brought up. Recreational opportunities, balancing that with protection of natural resources, ensuring we are devoting resources to protecting our natural areas and restoring them where needed. And then also trees fit into this piece. Trees were also part of transportation and making sure they're part of our boulevards, but really ensuring we have a vibrant tree canopy throughout our city, and that has multiple benefits: carbon sequestration, stormwater. There's a saying that trees are the answer, and I very much believe that too. And the last item we looked at was food. Mostly more of a local food concept of ensuring that people can grow their own food if they so choose, making good use of the food we have so it's not wasted. Food waste is a large, it's a surprisingly high % of food that gets produced nationwide does end up in the landfill or compost bin and not getting used. So trying to make better use of that here locally. And certainly fostering things like the farmers market so that folks can support the local farmers as well as buy food locally. And then there's sort of some other few recommendations that we've compiled. They didn't really fit into one topic, but more about city governance and how whether there should be a sustainability commission, and looking at how we as a city can continue to further our efforts by having a green team of city folks to work on our city operations. So that was a kind of whirlwind tour of what is in our sustainability plan. I will be sure to share that after this meeting so you can look at it at your own time. There's a nice 10-page executive summary that gives a good overview, but the full document is not quite done. But the core pieces are all outlined in it thus far, and by the end of the month we will have that in a full draft form. I probably didn't give the best explanation, so I expect there will be questions. So please shoot them at me.
All right, well, thanks for that summary, John. And Paul, you had a message about taking a look at the 6 focus areas. Could you talk a little bit about that in terms of the chronological order that you were speaking about?
Yeah, I was wondering if the committee had any comments or ideas or thoughts about how important it is once the document is placed into the full comp plan, about the order of those 6+1 general category, how they're placed into the document. If water, should be, the first one, followed by maybe natural resources, transportation, the order that John mentioned them, or if there's another order, if it doesn't even matter. That's all.
Sure. And overall in the document, I don't think it really matters. It will all be in the document. But if this committee wanted specifically to highlight water, for instance, or specifically wanted to highlight energy or waste or food, or if there was 1 or 2 specific things that you really want to highlight, that is an opportunity that we have in the comp plan to be able to do that. So. Shin Paul. Okay, great. And so I'll just backpedal a little bit. Go ahead, Ann.
Yes, I'm curious how highlighting these important areas and what ways that we highlight them, how can the city really position itself to apply for grants in order to support achieving some of the visions and the goals that are set forth in these 6 points, or if there's anything we can do here to increase our opportunity for that.
Well, it definitely helps to be able to say on grant applications, and I'm sure John will agree that specific initiatives or specific things are included in the city's comprehensive plan. So not only has it been approved as part of a sustainability focused plan, but also in the city's general plan as well. John?
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps us to be able to reference, for instance, in grant applications that, you know, of the folks we talked to, you know, 90% said sustainability is an important aspect of what the city should be doing. So we have to show that there is public interest and support, and be able to reference, say, you know, in our plan, you know, we are calling for you know, restoration of these areas. These are priority areas. It shows some forethought on our part, and I think that always helps our applications. We, you know, as in the plan right now, we're not saying specifically to apply for a grant to do, you know, specific work in an area, but it is a more of a general recommendation to continue to apply for, you know, grants which fund a lot of our, you know, tree and invasive species work, as I'm sure you're aware, and to kind of continue those projects.
Great, thank you, John. Any other questions for John and his executive summary that he just gave? Okay, so what we'll do right now is I'll just go back to the original question that I had. For those of you who have been involved in the creation of this plan, wondering if you could share with us personally, what is one thing that you think is most important or that you'd like to highlight from the plan? Maybe something that when you were working on it, you took personal passion in, or something that you'd really want to see happen. Just an example of something that you personally think is important related to the 2022 sustainability plan.
You know, Carlos, that is a really hard question. Mostly because, you know, I feel passionately about pretty much all the categories. Those who know me know that, you know, I'm kind of an energy geek and keen on that, but I mean, also, I mean, I have a long history of working on water issues, and we've seen examples of why that's important here just in the last week or two here in the county, if not just in the city. So I really do think that the pieces that I think really are prominent in my mind are water, the pieces that talk about our natural resources, water and energy use within the community, but it doesn't really take. I don't mean to short shrift the other categories, but I really do believe that they're all quite important.
Definitely, thank you, Paul. Anybody else that is joining us on Zoom like to comment?
Hey, also Paul. I am a big fan of the food section, especially as a part of sustainability and equitable access to food. I think, especially in Winona, we have a lot of solid community gardens, and we have opportunities to create more. And it's part of the natural environment. I don't think often gets thought of as natural environment because it's, you know, sort of entwined with human efforts. So I just would encourage us not to overlook the food aspect of environment and think about opportunities to enmesh the two further.
Great, and thank you, Paul. Could you actually introduce yourself to the group? I think you came in just a little bit later, and I don't know you, so it'd be great to hear who you are.
Yeah, apologies. The internet connection this morning was bad. But yeah, I'm Paul Schmidt. I serve on the CEQC. I am a teacher at Cotter and working on my PhD in English, where my dissertation is focusing on literature about agriculture, essentially. Before moving up to Winona a couple of years ago, I worked for Iowa Valley Resource Conservation and Development, where we did a lot of local food systems work and and sort of local economic development around that. So glad to be a part of the group. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. All right, Paul just sent a message to everybody that he had to travel for an appointment in Northfield. Thank you, Paul Schulmeyer, for joining us, and good, have safe travels. All right, any other comments from people on Zoom about the 2022 sustainability plan and a specific section or area that you maybe feel you're most passionate about? I'm actually going to call on John. John, I know you're supposed to, you are coordinating everything, but is there anything in particular that you feel particularly strongly about related to this work that you've been doing on the plan?
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly aspects of every topic that really catch my interest and are things I'm working on currently. Probably the area that I am most interested in doing, and that I think from a planning perspective it makes the most difference, is our green infrastructure, because that's the kind of thing that if we have it in our plan and we put an emphasis in there, it can really pay dividends for our stormwater, which our infrastructure is aging and probably will have to be replaced. So to have a plan in place and really put emphasis on that green infrastructure piece, that's something that the city can really lead on. It's not something individuals can help with rain gardens, but it's kind of a piece where I think is going to be very important to highlight in our plan, because it is going to really be on the city to really implement that. But yeah, personally, planting a tree, that's probably what I like to do most about the sustainability stuff.
Got it. All right. Thanks, John. Dan has joined us here in person, and he is diligently writing notes as we speak. So I'm going to call on you, and if you could share with us your thoughts.
Well, it'd be hard to rank these because they all kind of support each other in their own way. But I think the one that I believe, I guess, impacts me the most is the one about preservation and enhancement of our current natural resources, green spaces. To preserve what we have and also improve what we have, because as many people pointed out, there's lots of areas of that could be improved, but also all the aspects, water, energy, food. They all kind of, it's a big puzzle, and they all kind of fit together. And that's what we're trying to do here, is trying to bring all these aspects together to create the best environment we can. That's all.
Great, and I think that really does help to be able to, I think it's easier with perhaps some of the other subcommittees to focus on a couple of things that people think are of the most importance, but just how much things are interwoven related to the environment is something that I think we can highlight in the comprehensive plan. And just to say that yes, there are some things that maybe are more poignant at a certain period of time than others, but because it's such a puzzle and there's so many moving pieces, it's important to consider it all. So next question would be, for those who did not or have not participated in development of the plan, just kind of your thoughts personally from an environmental perspective, what you see as most important moving forward in the next 10 to 20 years here in the city of Winona, and how we work with and enhance our environment. So I'll leave it up to either Anne or Neil to go first. So on your mark, get set, go. All right, I'm going to call on Neil. And Neil must have had to step away for a second. So the next person, Anne, since you're there, would you share with us just some thoughts that you have over the next 10 to 15 years here? What are some things in terms of the environment that you think will be especially important here in Winona?
Yeah, I think focusing on natural resources, of course, that's been a focus of mine for a long time. I think that it's important that Winona understands the natural environment that surrounds us and the biodiversity that the natural environment supports, and what is needed in order to improve that environment, to really understand if that environment isn't improved, what might the consequences be and related to managing invasive species, but also, really balancing recreation and that habitat, taking care of the habitat. And along, of course, along with that, how can we really get out ahead and get ready for electric vehicles? And I hope that with some of the funding that's happening at a national level, that will start to trickle down into our communities as we prepare for the inevitable coming of electric vehicles. And then also just continually looking at what can we do to conserve energy by design and by really connecting with renewables.
Thank you, Ann. And I'll next call on Nicole. All right, so she sent a message, renewable energy, and she is just typing into the chat. So as you are all able to see. The solar covered parking spots at WSU, great idea. And that's also something related to their overall comprehensive plan. The university is working on their comprehensive plan currently as well. And so the comprehensive plan, one of the major things that they are looking at into the future is that energy use and being able to power their campus essentially from the energy that they are able to harvest on their campus, either through solar or from potential geothermal as well. So that's something that I think is very excited given the large size of Winona State University, not just in economic impact, but also environmental impact and the amount of land that the university has in the central area of the city. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. And kind of what I wanted to pull back and take a look at briefly next is the vision and values that we have. So you can see how things are kind of aligning with the overall vision and values that I mentioned we had determined at the beginning of this process. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And so you'll see right at the top here, the 2045 vision, a vibrant, inclusive river city where we are connected with each other and our beautiful environment, and we lead with entrepreneurial spirit and creativity. So we heard a lot about how people enjoy the connections that they have with other people in Winona and how you have access to big city amenities, but that small town feel that you get when you go to the grocery store and you see, however number of people that you recognize or that you know. And so that was huge for people and tied directly into their sense of livability and well-being that they cherished in the committee or in the community. And also, you'll see the second thing there is environment and recreation. And I think that speaks to balancing the recreation and natural preservation as well that Ann was just talking about. And you can see there in the second sentence, actively preserve, enhance, and increase accessibility to our environment for future generations. So not just preserving the environment itself, but enhancing accessibility to that environment, not just necessarily physical access, but the ability to know more about the local ecosystem and the unique characteristics of it, especially related to biodiversity and what gives Winona that special place in a lot of people's minds when it comes to the natural environment. Because I think that a lot of times when you come and visit our beautiful river city, the first thing that people talk about are the river and the bluffs. That's what they remember. And so making sure that we focus on these types of things are very important and will be play a prominent role in the comprehensive plan moving forward. That being said, we also had a couple other core values having to do with entrepreneurship and economy, and then learning and culture as well. So this is kind of the overall umbrella that we are working under. And I guess I'll just pull back here and ask if there are any questions about how this was developed or any questions about this overall guiding document.
Carlos, could you clarify for us? Are these have been adopted by the city council? So these are the kind of the official values, or is this something the group would have a role in drafting for the environment one, for example?
Sure. So these are the overarching vision and values that the city council has approved right now. They are a draft form, though, as with everything having to do with the comprehensive plan up until its final adoption. But these ones would not necessarily be a focus of this committee. Not to say that if you would like to add something to it or change something about it, we couldn't. That's definitely something this committee could recommend. But more specifically, this committee would be focused on goals and objectives from the 2022 sustainability plan, and then anything from that plan that you'd like to highlight. Okay, so I just went ahead and stopped sharing there. So what we've been doing and what we think that we might have for this group here is 2 to 3 meetings. And so I would see our next meeting happening potentially in a couple of weeks here before Labor Day. We'd be looking at the 26th, that's August 26th. I'm not sure if we could take a look at in your schedules right now and see if the 26th at 9 o'clock would work for those who are in attendance. John, would that work for you?
I believe so. That's a Friday. So 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, that'd be Friday, the 26th, 2 weeks from now.
That should work. That should work.
Okay. Sounds good. And so what we'll do is we'll make sure and get the 2022 sustainability plan out to committee members. And then what John and I will work to do is to at least create a draft form of how we envision incorporating the main vision and goals from that plan into the comprehensive plan, and provide that for committee members' input at the next meeting. So we'll have some additional information for you all to look at, but thank you so much for your time and for your input thus far, and for meeting this morning. Before I sign off, and before we sign off, is there anything else anybody would like to mention before we head out for the day? Okay, well, thanks everybody for joining us, and we will plan on seeing you again in another 2 weeks at 9 o'clock, and we'll send you some information ahead of time, and enjoy the next 2 weeks at the end of summer here. So thanks again.
Right.
Gotta make sure we click all the buttons.